Call the whistle wall.
Kia ora, Mr Speaker. Thank you very much for the opportunity to speak on this, the third reading of the Veteran Support Bill. I firstly would like to acknowledge that on the 4th of August we will mark the centenary of New Zealand entering the First World War, that we had 103,000 New Zealanders serve overseas, we had 59,500 casualties and 18,200 New Zealanders gave their lives for our country. The history of this bill is really interesting, and I will go through it because I think it's important. We're here because in 2003, the Health Select Committee actually had an inquiry into Agent Orange, and it was very much inspired by our Vietnam vets and the state of wellbeing of our Vietnam vets. And one of the recommendations from that Health Select Committee inquiry was actually for the review of the veterans' pension. What happened was a memorandum of understanding entered into by the government and the NZRSA and the Ex-Vietnam Services Association. In 2007, the Law Commission was empowered to conduct that review, and they had 170 recommendations, of which 132 were accepted. One wasn't, and I actually want to focus my whole speech on the one that wasn't, and it was recommendation 95, and I'd like to read it. And it was that all veterans with qualifying operational service should be eligible for the veterans' pension, regardless of whether they have received impairment compensation. Now, currently, to receive the veterans' pension, you have to be 70% disabled. That translates through to into the new legislation as 52% disabled. And so if you are 52% disabled or 70% disabled, as is the current legislation, you receive as a veterans' pensioner, number one, a community services card. Number two, payments continue if you have 13 weeks plus in hospital, and you also receive a funeral grant. Can I say that that call for all veterans to be eligible for a veterans' pension was actually came from the 1960s. The NZRSA have been calling for all veterans to receive a veterans' pension since the 1960s. The Law Commission was interesting reading their report, because actually they said the veterans' pensions are premised on four principles. One is about service to our country, the other is about actual economic loss, the third point was about economic need, and fourthly it was about disability. So of course disability was part of the equation. And I see the latest iteration of disability is also an active responsibility of the government to provide rehabilitation, which I think actually is the extension in this piece of legislation. But if we go back right to the beginning of New Zealand's history of providing pensions to our war veterans, it actually started in 1866, and it was called the Military Pensions Act. And the Military Pensions Act was really interesting because what they did was had a panel of doctors, and they made an assessment about whether or not you were deserving or not. And the really interesting commentary of that piece of legislation was that they actually had lower rates for Māori than Pākehā veterans. So it says something about the history of the time and how we regarded different types of veterans. And the ethos, as it was in 1590, and I mentioned this in my second reading speech, was very much a charitable response by the government, and it picked up on that Queen Elizabeth quote about the fruits of their good deserving. So we wanted to make sure that the deserving were catered for. Now, there was another iteration of the Military Pensions Act, and that happened in the War Pensions Act of 1915, Mr Speaker. And in that iteration, we actually created boards that decided whether or not people and what type of support they were eligible to. And it was at that time that we corrected the differences between Māori and Pākehā pensioners and said, no, they all deserve to receive the same level of support. Then again in 1943 there was another update of the War Pensions Act, and we improved the rates, we improved the process. So there was an ongoing conversation between the Returned Services Association and the government about the needs of our war pensioners. From 1951, we integrated our response as a government into the social security system. But it was interesting at that time because the Veterans Association, the media, there was a commission of inquiry, actually created the War Pensions Act of 1954. And the interesting thing about the history of the evolution of our recognition of the support that our war pensioners deserved also gave rise to Regulation 45 of the War Pensions Regulations 1956. And in fact, Mr. Speaker, that's where funeral expenses came from. And that's where, as a qualifying veterans pensioner, you were eligible to get the funeral grant. The commentary from the Law Commission is relevant because what they said was that our veterans deserve to be treated with a generosity of spirit in return for their sacrifice to New Zealand, and that the three things that they've got, the community services card, a continuation of the pension, of the payment of their veterans' pension if they go into hospital, and a funeral grant, was actually in recognition of the effects on the quality of life of veterans. So it wasn't about the level of disability. It was actually about a recognition of the sacrifice, being away from your family, being away from home, not getting further educated, the ongoing loss. And it was a small token of appreciation above anything else. And so what I find offensive, I guess, as a member of the Select Committee, is that during this process we have changed the criteria and we have said now that all veterans will get the veterans' pension. And I think that this House has demonstrated that democracy does work. But with one hand we've given and with the other hand we've taken away, because you only receive that funeral grant if you're 52% disabled. And the rationale for that, it's money. Pure and simple, it's all about the money. And I find that, you know what, you can get a veteran's pension before 65. So age is irrelevant. What the issue about what we are going to pass tonight as a parliament is that we're going to say you all deserve a veteran's pension, but an aspect of qualifying for a veteran's pension, which means we will give you a funeral grant when you die, you have to be 52% disabled. Now, I, like my colleagues, 100% support this bill. And I want to thank the New Zealand RSA, Returned Services Association, for their hard work and dedication in getting us to this point in time. I would like to acknowledge Veterans Affairs and all our officials who have brought us to this point in time. And I want to say that as a member of the Select Committee who sat through the submissions and has been formally part of this process, Mr. Speaker, that it has been a privilege to actually hear how important this piece of legislation is from the veterans themselves. And I know on Monday all of us will be, wherever we are, acknowledging the 100 years since World War I. And it is slightly ironic that all of this is happening at this time, but I do think that it's very mean-spirited for us to impose a new qualification on those who receive the veterans' pension to not be eligible for the funeral grant that has been in place and been a part of that particular pension since 1956, as I highlighted. So I commend this bill to the House. I want to acknowledge the Minister. I know he's a bit upset with me, but the reality is our side of the House, all of us, the Greens, Labour, New Zealand First, who sat on the Select Committee, this was one of the big issues that we tried so hard to get consensus around, and to have failed to do that, I think is commentary of the time, and it's commentary about the prioritisation of this government. Kia ora, Mr Speaker.
Members, this debate is concluded. The question is that the motion be agreed to. Those of that opinion will say aye. Aye. To the contrary, no. The ayes have it.
Veteran Support Bill, third reading.
Call on Government Order of the Day number 2.
Land Transport Amendment Bill, third reading.
Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Jerry Brownlee.
Mr. Speaker, I move that